What's up? Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Culture and Cigars. I'm your host, Demetrius Holland. I want to thank everybody so far for subscribing and following me on SoundCloud and iTunes. At this time, I got a special guest with me. Go and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Richard Reason Garrett. I'm a city councilman for Ward 1 of Clarksville. I'm also a licensed realtor with Keller Williams Realty and the executive director of the LEAP organization.
Okay, how long you been in real estate?
For about 6 years now.
6 years. What made you get into that?
Well, it was something that I had kind of grown up in. My father, he's been a realtor for about 20 years. My mom's got about 8 or 9 years in, and my dad's my broker now at Keller Williams. So just being around it, seeing the flexibility that real estate provides to where you can work as hard or not as much as you want. It gave me that flexibility to be able to sustain my family while pursuing the vision God gave me to work with you.
Okay, so was what was you doing before you got into real estate?
I was a manager at Convergence for about 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had that flood in 2010 where they laid a bunch of us off, and it just happened to work out, to where I could finish my degree at Austin P, get my real estate license, and just take the time because it was difficult being in school, working full time for a company, and then trying to start a nonprofit. Just wasn't enough hours in a day.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get back to the more details about the nonprofit, but what did you go to Austin P for?
Public management.
Public management. So, do you need that degree to do real estate, or?
Oh, not at all.
Uh,
I think I'm not even sure that you even have to have a high school diploma. To be honest with you, I almost want to say you can even have a GED and get your real estate license. It's just a matter of in Tennessee, you got to get your 60-hour course in, your 30-hour course, and then you take the state exam. Once you pass the licensing exam, you just find a brokerage firm to work for.
okay. So, as far as if somebody say like this is, I want to make a career move, and I want to get into real estate. What would be how? What's my first steps?
I think the first steps are to just decide one how you want to go through your schooling. There's different options. You can actually go to a class. From what I hear now, the Clarksville Association of Realtors is offering the class down there on Centerpoint Drive. Me personally, I did mine online.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the mail correspondence, which I probably wouldn't recommend. Who wants to mail stuff back and forth for a class?
Yeah.
But online, it just provided that convenience. It's at your own pace. So you can do it in as quick as 2 weeks if you really grind and put the effort into it, or like I did, and I stretched mine out for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I wasn't in a big rush at the time.
Yeah. But you said you could do it in 2 weeks?
Yeah, if you really work at it, you put in like about 8 hours a day, moving through the modules, and are able to make those focused hours. You can get through them. For me, real estate was kind of common sense just because I grew up in it.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that they're teaching you, there's some principles within it that you definitely need to go through the course to understand. But as long as you remember the key things, which are protecting the consumer, behaving ethically, with the best interest and heart of your, who you're working for, it's pretty simple to get through.
Okay. So, what is some tips for, like, say I want to be a first time home buyer? What is some advice that you would give someone?
Well, some of the tips that I'd give someone wanting to be a first-time home buyer would be to first get pre-approved. Reach out to a lender, find out, what your purchasing capacity is. They'll look at things like your credit score, which will determine the types of first-time home buyer programs you might be eligible for down payment assistance. Like with THDA, they prefer you to be a 640 credit score.
640.
But
Okay.
there's other options. City of Clarksville has a first-time home buyers program that's not necessarily a credit score dependent. You just have to have a lender that's willing to pre-approve you.
Mm.
They also look at things like your debt to income ratio, and that's all things that your lender will educate you on as far as the different ratios. And different lenders have different thresholds for DTI, debt to income, that they can finance for you, and that affects how much money they can lend you. Because at the end of the day, most loan officers that you work with initially, their job is to start the process to get the loan, to get it financed, but they're selling the loan. So, whereas you hear different lenders say they have credit score requirements, it's all dependent on the investors that they have lined up to buy the loan for them. So some people have investors that are willing to take risk on individuals with like 550s, 580s. Oftentimes your interest rate may be a little bit higher because it's a higher risk loan. So those are all things to consider. So the answer question for a first-time home buyer, or even a previously someone that's previously owned a home, that lender is the first place that you should really start the process, so that you know basically how much money you have available to shop with, or what you need to do to get qualified.
Okay. So, you talked about taking there's stuff out there for first time home buyers. I'm not I don't know all the details, but didn't they like change the law or something where they wasn't gonna give out that many loans and stuff?
Well, I'm not privy to anything to where they changed it to where they're not giving out as many loans. That I don't know. Like I could tell you right now, real estate is moving. So I don't. If there's some restriction, we're not feeling the results of it, because a lot of people are getting loans. A lot of contracts going on. Just the pulse of the real estate community is that we're all off to a pretty good year. So
Okay.
And actually THDA got some federal funding to help out in areas that are kind of slow moving. So like in Clarksville, homes that are in the 37042 zip code, and I guess parts of 37040, they're eligible for some additional THDA funding to help sellers whose houses have been affected by so much building going on, and existing homes just not being the trend, to entice buyers to go ahead and take an existing home, because they'll get a little bit extra from THDA to complete the purchase.
Okay. So like, do that mean it's in like, you would say, a bad neighborhood, or?
No, it doesn't even have to be a bad neighborhood, just an existing neighborhood. You've got some of them on, Kenwood area, Northwest. You got some on Tiny Town, just basically existing neighborhoods that, because it's, I get it. Obviously I represent a lot of different sellers, and some of my sellers that are in existing older neighborhoods. The houses that were built in 1980s, 1990s, they just don't have all the upgrades to them that a new construction house has. And for a seller to invest the money to upgrade to hardwood floors and granite countertops and redoing this and redoing that, an appraiser is not going to necessarily give them that much credit for the money that they put in. So, you might sink 30 grand in renovations to the house, but those are still cosmetic in nature. They just make it appealing to a buyer to buy it, but it doesn't really affect the value, but say maybe 5 grand more. So you're out of 25 grand trying to make your house more appealing to a buyer. And so I think that's more so the intent of the provisions that allow THDA to inject money into a deal, is to entice a buyer to say, hey, I can spend more for this new construction home and get it, the latest and greatest, or I can get more equity and funding to help me, acquire an existing home and be okay with not having the most modern, latest, and greatest features.
So which one do you recommend for which one do you recommend for a first time home buyer?
It all depends on the family circumstances, but me, I'm a big proponent of being practical. So often we get caught up in trying to keep up with the Joneses, and I even suffer from it sometimes because I show so many houses that I see all these upgraded houses, and it makes me come home. Nothing's wrong with my house, but it's like, man, but they have this, they have that, especially new construction.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of having that self-awareness, self-discipline to realize that all the upgrades in the world don't really mean a thing, especially if you're house poor. Meaning, you got the nicest house on the block, but you don't have money to do other things with it because all your money's tied up into a mortgage.
Yeah.
When you can settle for not having real hardwood floors and go with laminate floors that you really can't tell the difference. You can get the Formica countertops instead of granite. You can not have all these fancy upgrades. Have a house that's fully functional that'll get the job done for you as far as caring for you and your family, and have the money to set aside to, for college, for vehicles, for different things that, may come up. So that would be my advice. Just be practical. Don't get caught up in HGTV and feeling like you got to have the latest and greatest. Go for what's, you actually need. And you can get some really great deals, and I oftentimes I recommend first-time home buyers, man, get foreclosures. Foreclosures, man.
Where do you find those at?
I mean, just talking to your realtor, like when we do searches, all we do is put in the price range. Well, for me, I put in the price range, the amount of bedrooms, bathrooms, if you give me square footage, if you want a privacy fence. So I put in the parameters that you want, and if a foreclosure pops up in that list, it pops up in the list.
Yeah.
But give you a case in point, and I've done this twice recently where I've had a buyer, I got him one buyer got him a 4-bedroom, 2,800 square foot house in a really good neighborhood for $160,000. The house was previously purchased by the owners that got foreclosed for $215,000, like 3 years prior. So he ended up with, practically over 40 grand equity in the house immediately. And then I got VA and this is kind of unheard of, but I was able to get VA to pay for the carpets to get replaced, the walls to get painted. Usually foreclosures is as is. And so, he stayed in the house for a year, and then now selling it. We got a contract on it. He's going to end up clearing, after all expenses, 30 grand after staying in it only a year. So, that's a come up right there.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple of stories I could tell you about similar buyers where, they initially had this expectation, I want the latest and greatest, but I was able to express to them, like, take advantage of the foreclosure instant equity, because even if later on you decide you want something else, you can turn right back around, put it on the market for market value, and you walk away with 20, 30 grand. Now you can really afford to get what you wanted the first time around.
Yeah.
Then you're not strapped for cash and, just feeling burdened by the whole thing.
Okay. So I got another question, but first, what is equity?
Equity just pertains to ownership would be the wrong word, but I'll give you an example of equity. So the house, let's say you pay $100,000 for a house, right? Or the market value for the house is $100,000. Or the appraised value is. And so in that, over time, you start paying your mortgage, and it reduces the amount you owe on it. So let's say, over 5 years now, you've paid down enough to where you only owe $80,000.
Yeah.
So if you owe $80,000 and the house is worth $100,000, you have $20,000 of equity. The difference between what you owe and how much the house is valued at. And obviously, over time, the value of the houses typically rise. So let's say, within 5 years, you only owe 80, but the house has improved to, let's say 110. Well, now you have that difference, that increased equity.
So equity is good for you as a buyer. Okay. So you was talking about like buy a house that's been in foreclosure. Then he stayed in it for a year and he sold it. So How much did you say it was at first? Like 200,000 something?
Yeah, the people before him, according to the tax record, they bought the house like 3 years before for 215,000. We bought it as a foreclosure for about 162,000. So you're getting something that's worth at least 215, and you're only paying 162. That difference is equity.
Yeah.
So he could do things like take out an equity loan. He can go to a bank and say, this $40,000. I'm just rounding. You say this $40,000 in equity that I have, I want to borrow against it. They're going to give it to him because he has it in that valuation. So it's almost like money in the bank somewhat.
So would you recommend doing the equity loan?
It just depends on what you're going to do with it. I wouldn't take an equity loan out to do something that's not going to generate more money. I'd prefer, if I get a property, for instance, we use 40,000 for example. So there's investment properties out there now that you can get for 40,000. So I'd take a $40,000 equity loan out in a heartbeat to pay cash essentially for an investment property.
Yeah.
Because then I get this, let's say if I'm able to snatch up like this 3.2 or 3.1 is more likely at 40,000, put some renovations in it, and then I put it on the market for, $700-800 a month rent. Well, what I just bought is paid off. So now I'm using that $700-800 to pay back that equity loan. Yeah. And I'm still winning. Eventually, I'm gonna pay off that equity loan. Now I've got something that's bringing me in residual income. That's also got its own valuation. That'll go up itself. That'll have equity. Because if I got it for 40 as a foreclosure too, it was probably worth about 70,000-80,000. So you're just building up equity in your assets to generate wealth. And that's the big difference. I think in our culture is we got this mindset of I want to be rich.
Yeah.
And being rich, man, you could be rich today, broke tomorrow. It's a lot of frivolous, materialistic things that don't add value at the end of the day. But when you're wealthy, you have things that are asset, income producing, to where if you decide not to clock in another day in your life, the investments that you put your money into will still continue to generate revenue. And you're actually able to retire without even being a millionaire. The key to being retiring early is just so that your assets exceed your liabilities. And if you bring enough residual income that is more than your living expenses, then technically you're working just to work. You know what I'm saying? That's extra spending money, or if you're wise, more money that you can put to investments so that you're not just generating that wealth for you, but your kids and your kids' kids.
So an investment property would be like apartments or something?
Apartments, houses.
It's just something you use to make more money.
Correct.
Okay, so like I'm thinking like buy if you want to. Well, you said don't use the word rich, but I was gonna say start making some money. Cause I hear some rappers, they get into real estate. That's how they make some money. So like you buy for if I'm coming from the ground up trying to come up, buy something in foreclosure, and then hopefully it got some equity. Then get an equity loan, and then try to see if I could buy something else that's like an investment property.
Yeah, you can go that route. So you got a couple different types of investors out there too, though. So you got some investors that are like me that they like to buy it low, very low, and rent it out, and they're in for the long haul.
Yeah.
Because for me, I got 4 kids, and my whole investment strategy is I want by the time each one of my kids graduate high school to have a house that's paid off, then I can gift them.
Yeah.
To where, they don't get scholarships. If this ain't available, that ain't available to send them to college. At the end of the day, if I really needed to, I could liquidate that asset, sell it, boom, your college is paid off. Or just continue to rent that out and just use that to, pay installments on the tuition and whatnot. It's almost like that living will to where they'll be taken care of regardless. They're 18, you're going to either go into college, military, something, but you're getting out of my house. And so they'll have a house to go to that they can either live in or manage themselves to relocate somewhere and have their own better residual income to sustain themselves. So that's kind of my personal strategy. Is buying, renting, allowing other people to pay off my property essentially to better off my family. Now, you got others, though, that are into buying low, really low, fix up a little bit and sell it and make about, anywhere between $5,000 to $20,000, each flip. So those are the flipper guys. And so, that's a cool strategy too. That gives you that instant gratification. You might have to pay a little bit in capital gain tax and different things like that, but there's people that do really well at flipping. So it's just really all in how you want to do. And some people, they do the quick flips to get into the long game. They may want to, get like a 4-plex or an 8-plex unit, but that requires you to put so much money down, 20% down. So if you're looking at paying $250,000 for a 4-plex, some people just don't have that cash to put down. So how do you get that cash? Well, you start small. I'm gonna buy this $40,000 foreclosure. I'm gonna flip it, get me a quick, $15,000 off of it, buy something else, and keep flipping it, stocking up till I can, get what I really want, and then get into the long-term game and still flip on the side. So there's a lot of different variations that you can do, but the key is just having that mindset of being forward thinking, and just really taking, being responsible about what you're spending your money on.
So it could be like dangerous. Well, I don't know if dangerous is the right word. Like flipping too fast, because like you said he stayed in the house for like a year, and then that's when he sold it. Like, is it like a set time before you can sell? Like, say if I buy it, how long before I can sell it?
Well, that all depends on the type of loan that you get. So if you use an FHA loan, FHA loans are designed for homeowners that are going to live in the house. If you go conventional, there are no limitations. Conventional are for investors. They take the loan out knowing that you're either going to rent it out or sell it. So there's no, you can, so the conventional loan, essentially pretty much buy it tomorrow, put it on the market. FHA, so it's not really designed for that. And there's no real length of time. You have to have the intent to live there. But we all know things happen in life. So, you buy it today, but then you get a job offer 2 months from now in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So you want to buy a house there where you can only have one FHA loan out at a time. So now you have to sell what you just bought to be able to buy somewhere else. And they're completely fine with stuff like that. They just don't want to see you abuse it or get into mortgage fraud.
Oh, so if your intention wasn't to stay there, that'd be mortgage fraud?
Right. Yeah. So like if you just never moved in the house and day one put a renter in there, or day one turned around and flipped it, it's harder to really say that you ever had the intent. I mean, dude, you didn't even try to move in. You ain't got no bills going to this address, nothing. Like, so that's a real thin line on the mortgage fraud tip. So if you're going to use an FHA loan, you need to at least have the intent to move in, stay in there for a little bit, and and move
on. Okay, so like, is it different? The process is different. Say like I'm not going for a home, but I'm trying to open up my own business, and I need real estate. Is it different than buying real estate for a home?
So you're asking basically, is it different to, like if you want to buy a home or a commercial building?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot different purchasing a commercial building than it is a home because they look at different things. So like for instance, we're in the process of purchasing this building here. And so not as much on you as an individual, but your business's somewhat credit score, history with finances. So depending on the amount of the purchase, they're looking back. How, have you taken out other lines of credits or loans? How have you done with repaying them? Do you have adequate cash flow to support the mortgage? The last thing they want to do is foreclose on a business because those are generally a little bit harder to find somebody to come in and take over. Because at the end of the day, most businesses here in Clarksville they're not essential. A house, somebody is eventually going to get that house because we all need a place to live.
Yeah.
But we all don't need a business to start.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they look at that and they do look at you as the owner. They will look at your credit history because, I mean, obviously, if you're not paying anybody back and, you got a 480 credit score and you're running a business, chances are you're going to default on the loan because you're not personally responsible. So, how do they expect you to be professionally? So, your personal credit scoring history will play into it. But also, you can have A1 credit, but your business be so new that it hadn't had time to have the financials. They look at that as a high risk because it's an unknown.
Mm-hmm. So if you would probably have to try to rent from somewhere first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But what if you got your mind made up, you want to build? Is there ways around that or no?
I mean, where there's a will, there's always a way.
Mm-hmm.
There's getting maybe an investor to come on with you that has the cash flow and the name behind them.
Mm-hmm.
So where the banks, they readily lend to them because they have that track record.
Yeah.
So if they vouch for you, co-sign for you, you got different ways around it.
Mm-hmm.
But in my role right now, so in addition to real estate, we do the youth development, but it's also an entrepreneur center here. And so I consult entrepreneurs quite frequently, and we do different trainings for them regularly. Like we got one this Saturday on the world of entrepreneurship to kind of guide entrepreneurs on, one, do you have a business or do you have a hobby?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to look at it. And there's so many, we can get into that section later, but there's so many different things as it pertains to commercial real estate that you want to look at before you sign your name on any lease or mortgage note to buy something. Like, is this something that is sustainable? Do you have budgeted forecasts? Are you thinking past maybe an interesting conversation that you had with somebody that said, "Oh yeah, I'll support it if you do this."
Mm-hmm.
People say they'll support ideas all day, every day, but when it actually comes down to cash flowing in, it's money talks.
Yeah.
Other stuff walks. You know what I mean? So, it's a lot of different things that you got to look at. So I wouldn't. My advice typically to new organizations or businesses is don't get caught up in having a storefront unless your business, like it's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, if you're a grocery store, you've got to have a bricks and mortar shop. Having fresh produce, they got to come in, they got to get it for the most part. But other businesses, there's so many different options to having a business. Like this building here,
Mm-hmm.
for instance. Like I've got businesses that pay as low as $50 a month, some $100 a month, just to be able to use co-working space so that they can have a commercial address, tell people they operate out of this building on Wilmer Rudolph that has 37,000 cars travel past it daily.
Mm-hmm.
And they still get to use stuff like the conference room, the computer lab, classrooms to do training. So it gives them the appearance of having, a commercial address without all the overhead. We include the utilities and internet. So I would encourage anybody starting off to seek out entrepreneur centers or business incubators to build up that track record of, I've been paying, rent. I've got experience doing that. I paid these expenditures on time. This is the revenue that I'm generating versus just coming initially and, trying to, get in debt.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about your leap board. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, with LEAF, we're a nonprofit youth development organization. That's how we got our starters, primarily focusing on at-risk troubled youth. We often get students that come from juvenile court, Department of Children's Services, the school system, and other social service agencies. And some of the services that we provide are mentoring, counseling, career readiness, community service, learning opportunities, just things to help them make healthier decisions to reduce the number of them committing criminal offenses, using controlled substances and tobacco, and helping them obtain employment and develop career plans. And so we've been officially operating as a nonprofit since April of 2009, and have evolved over the past 3 years when we acquired this facility, which used to be Daymar College. And that's where I kind of put on both hats and saw that one, as an organization 3 years ago, our annual budget was like $120,000. There's no way we could afford a building that was worth $2.6 million. It was impossible. Daymar was paying $23,000 a month in rent.
Yeah.
And our annual budget was $120,000, but I got the idea as far as from past experience, kind of doing business incubation of chopping up the facility, giving other businesses the opportunity to have affordable, all-inclusive rents, and that's enabled us to kind of cash flow the facility to pay off all the overhead that we have here, as well as kind of supplement our youth development activities. And this year, we got our first grant to actually do training for entrepreneurs. So before, it was more so we give you affordable, pretty much all-inclusive office space with common areas, and that was it. Of course, I did the business consultation, so they'd come schedule time with me, and I'd kind of share some of my successes, failures, advice based on that, and connect them with different resources to help them be successful. But between all the different hats I wear, it's just hit or miss, when they could catch me and things of that nature. Well, now that we've got funding to provide training, I brought in subject matter experts from Nashville, Clarksville, to conduct these mastermind groups to where, for 5 weeks on a Saturday, you just commit 2 hours on a Saturday for 5 weeks to go through intro to entrepreneurship, strategic business planning, financial management, human resources, and marketing. So those are, the 5 topics that any entrepreneur, in my opinion, based on experience, you just need. Those are like your foundation building blocks. So once you have a concept of those, you really know if, like I said earlier, if it's a hobby or if it's a business, and if it's a business that you need to do part-time, full-time, or just really just on the side until things materialize.
So is these classes free or you got paid?
They're free.
They're for the community or just people here?
No, they're for the entire community.
Okay.
The state pays me to pay the instructors to do it. So, it's free to the participants, but somebody's paying for it. In the state of Tennessee, they're footing the bill for it.
And you said that they're normally on Saturdays? Every Saturday or?
Well, no, so the first one, we had about 3 weeks ago, we brought Bunker Labs to do like a 1-day seminar, just a teaser of some of the stuff that's going to be covered. And that was an all-day workshop about 2 or 3 weeks ago. But now this Saturday starts the first mastermind group. And so it's going to run from this Saturday and five weeks after that. Then we'll take about a 3-week break, and then we'll start Mastermind Group 2, which will be the exact same classes. So if you went through Mastermind 1, you don't need to go through Mastermind 2, the same material. And kind of one of the bases for it is not just what you learn from the class, but what you learn from your peers. So, because you might have somebody that's in your mastermind group that's a graphic designer, another person might be a web designer. You might have a photographer. You got somebody that does marketing, somebody that has a business, bricks and mortar, somebody that's looking to do some stuff legal. So you get all these different fields, people with expertise. You're learning together, but it's also preparing you for networking, because that's the only way as an entrepreneur that you're going to be successful, is leveraging the knowledge and resources of others to help build your business and help them build theirs. So that's why we went with the name Mastermind, Entrepreneur Mastermind Group, because we're teaching you, but we're also encouraging collaboration.
Okay, so you said Mastermind One is 5 weeks straight, or
Yeah, it's 5 weeks straight.
and then after that you're done, or y'all gonna have more classes?
Well, there'll be other classes that they can take.
Uh-huh.
Right now, we only have scheduled is the Mastermind Group 1, a 3-week break, and then Mastermind Group 2. Working on getting somebody to come in and do some stuff on what we call technical assistance courses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just probably like a 2-3 hour course on how to get government contracts and things of that nature. And there'll be other classes that we offer, but for the purposes of the grant, we're on a 6-month trial period.
Mm-hmm.
And so in there, we just have to get a certain number of entrepreneurs to go through the Mastermind Group series in order to get our big contract to do what we really want to do is have trainings regularly, similar to the Center for Nonprofit Management. That's where I go to get my training in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And so like they send out postcards every month of the trainings that they're offering. You just register, take them. Well, for these, I have to pay for them though, but I mean, it's some really great stuff that I look forward to making that drive to Nashville to learn because it occurs that learning experience where I don't have to learn everything trial and error. I can glean it from people that have been there and done that.
Yeah.
And so that helps me out. So, we'll have those. And then the other piece of what we're looking to do is to be able to provide micro grants to micro enterprises, which are just businesses with 5 or fewer employees that are small businesses. And so, as an entrepreneur completes the mastermind group, they become a member of the Entrepreneur Center. They become eligible for these micro grants upon submitting a proposal to us to review and make sure that it's pretty sound, just to help them either grow, expand, start the business. So.
Oh, okay. So, is no certification type thing? Like, it's just after you complete this, you could possibly get a grant for your business.
Right. So, well, it's more of an internal certification. It's nothing that you're really going to take to, New York, Chicago, or Los Angeles and recognize like you went through the Elite Mastermind group. But, it is still a milestone that, you completed something towards your business. And that's an indicator if you're even serious. So many people, they want to be in business, but they don't want to really put into work. They're expecting somebody within maybe 30-minute hour conversation to kind of give them everything they need. Boom, now I'm ready to. No, it's continuously learning and growing. Like you've got to have that commitment to learning different things because you don't know what you don't know until you go to a class and you get that aha moment like, oh.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, so it's just encouraging that learning atmosphere for those, like I said, that are really serious about moving their business forward.
So I don't know if you explained it. Can you break down this hobby or business? Like, how can you tell? Like, because someone they might think that it's a business. So how would you define now that's maybe a hobby? That's not your business. Like, can you explain that?
Does it generate revenue?
But do all business gotta generate revenue?
Yeah, otherwise it's a hobby.
What if it's like well, if it's more about community service, it's not a business, it's a nonprofit. Okay.
Yeah.
But
and even a nonprofit makes a profit. That's where they get it twisted. The only difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit is the nonprofit operates for charitable purposes, and the revenue, like when we operate at a surplus, even though I'm the founder and executive director, I don't get to say, well, we made more money than we budgeted, so I get a bonus.
Yeah.
Or my board members, y'all get a bonus. No. That money stays within the organization to be continued to use for charitable purposes. So with a business for a profit, any excess revenues as the owner, I can pay myself. If you have stock in it, I can give you a stock dividend. Nobody owns a nonprofit, but you have an owner of a for-profit. That's the only difference.
Okay.
And so if you're operating a nonprofit, with a significant loss, I would call it a ministry.
So why would you explain that to me? You said if it's taking a loss, you would call it a ministry?
It's more of a ministry. Well, there are nonprofits that operate out of a loss every year, but the ones that do that are generally a part of a bigger nonprofit entity that isn't operating necessarily out of a loss, because they're covering that loss to where they can continue to give and not generate revenue. Like an example might be something like Meta Cafe. They're able to somewhat operate at a loss because they don't charge anything for the services. They make all of their money off of donations or grants. And so that's just how they're designed to go. So they're applying for grant funding, saying, hey, look, in order to continue to give away food to these people, we need money. Now, organizations like ours, we kind of started off like that because I didn't know about how to generate revenue as a nonprofit other than grants and donations. But then when we started the Entrepreneur Center, now we have rental income coming in to where we're working on being a self-sustaining nonprofit, to where we're not having to operate at a loss. We can actually operate and be self-sufficient to where we're not always having to go to a grant or always have a fundraising event to support our initiative. We can just do it versus, asking for help to help someone else.
Okay. So if it don't make money, it's a hobby.
Yeah, especially on the for-profit scale. Business, leaving the nonprofits out of it, if it's not generating revenue, it's just a hobby. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's not a diss for people that operate businesses as a hobby. What you do, what brings you pleasure and joy is what brings you pleasure and joy. But it's better if you identify it as a hobby up front versus a business, because if you take a hobby and mentally try to grind it like a business, it becomes a non-enjoyable hobby because you're frustrated because you're holding your hobby to the same standards that one would hold a business to, and it doesn't measure up. And so you're no longer going to find fulfillment in the hobby, and it just becomes a task, a routine. I just do it. I don't even know why I do it. At one point, I used to like it, but an example on me, my first business I started was Liberated Publishing, because I was under the misguided notion that I was going to fund the nonprofit by selling books that I've written, publishing other authors, building websites, and doing consulting. I still have the business, but I don't advertise it. The business is almost more like a hobby. There's just no way possible. Like behind me now, those are all the books that I've published under my publishing company.
Oh, okay.
When you look at the expenses, well, I really don't have a lot of overhead per se, but the amount of revenue that comes in off of the different authors that we've published compared to if I were to exert the effort into it, I'd be operating in the red. I'd be taking losses left and right and never get my time back that I spent into it. And reading and writing is something that I love to do. But I lost the joy of it when that became something more than what it was. And it was like, I gotta do it. I gotta push. And it's like, there's no return on investment. So for me, before I go back to writing again, I wanted to be at a time where, I've got my family good, all my business ventures, they're settled, they're operating, they don't need me to be hands-on. And I can go back to just doing it as something that I enjoy doing. And if somebody wants to purchase a copy, go for it. I just enjoyed the journey of putting my thoughts on paper and writing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So say I wrote a book, I could come to you and you would publish it. And when you publish it, like it'll go on like Amazon and all that. Okay, I ain't know that. So can you make money off your hobby? Say like you doing it as a hobby, and you put in your mind frame just a hobby, but it just boom.
You can. So maybe another example might be somebody that likes to knit sweaters, right? This is they like knitting sweaters. But then somebody says, "Oh, can you knit me one?" Okay. You knit them one, so you made some money, and they tell their friend. So now you're generating revenue off of it, right? And so, yeah, it could blow up. But you also have to look at some that initially you don't look at when it's a hobby is how much time did you spend knitting that one sweater? You didn't calculate the time. You didn't care about the time. Just whenever you got downtime, you're knitting your sweater, watching TV. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing to you. It's just therapeutic. But now you've got the demand of people that I want the sweater knitted by such and such for this birthday party to give to the gift, or for this whatever event or occasion. How much is your time worth? You see, it's different from working for somebody. When you go work for a company, you go into this. Okay, I'm going to work for you for $10, $15, $20 an hour. Well, when it's a hobby, something that you only did because you enjoyed it, now you're doing it because people are paying you, and you may look at it initially like, okay, well, how do I price this thing? Well, the materials might cost me $5, so pay me $10, and I'll give you the sweater. But when you break down how much time it took you to knit this sweater, you might find that you really paid yourself after all the materials were paid 50 cents an hour. Is that really a business?
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, how much of your time is worth? That's what you have to ask yourself. Because you can make a hobby make sense on paper when you look at what it physically costs me to produce what they want from me with, and having that margin. But how much is your time? Could you do something else and make way more money?
Well, wouldn't you rather do something that you, at the end of the day, you could be like, yeah, it does take a lot of time, but this is something I really like doing.
Well, again, if you truly find fulfillment in it, yeah. But just from experience, you may like to do it, but you like to do it when you want to do it, when it's convenient for you to do it.
Yeah.
Like, we'll take this podcast, for example. It's cool right now because this is a convenient time for you to do it. But let's say you get a demand of people that want to get on the air or to advertise with you, and okay, I'll give you, such and such money, but I want 3 radio shout outs a day, or I want to be, interviewed right here, right now. And then you got back-to-back interviews, and before long, now your podcast is 8 hours a day. So you're giving up 8 hours a day, but is the amount of money that you're receiving really worth your time? Can you quit your daytime job, and just do it? What does that do to you? Or if you find that you have to keep your daytime job and go to work in like third shift just so you can handle being on the podcast during the day when people want to be on the podcast, what is that doing to your body? Wear and tear. I go through burnouts between city council, league, real estate, kids. Man, I got basketball season getting ready to start back up for my kids, where I got to turn into an Uber driver. Driving around all Clarksville, taking this one to practice here, this one here, another one at karate. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it's just like, I'm making money, but it doesn't really matter. I'm not happy. You know what I'm saying? I don't have time to even enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm like an old person now. I can't even stay up past 10 o'clock watching something on TV no more. It's watching me now because mentally I'm drained. I just need to clock out.
So how did you get, what made you run for city council?
Just because, I grew up out in the Pembroke subdivision, and now that I live in Summer Haven, which is kind of really connected to it, I grew up calling Summer Haven Pembroke, just because it's, we used to ride our bikes over there when there was a little nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm raising my own family there. And when I look at the landscape of the area, it hadn't changed much.
Mm-hmm.
From an infrastructural perspective, of course, there's a lot more houses, there's some more businesses, but what type of activities are there for you? What type of improvements have been done? And I look at other sides of town and hear the buzz on just new initiatives and where they're focusing on. North Clarksville isn't it. And when I started asking why, they said, well, most people that live in North Clarksville, especially that area, tiny town, are military affiliated. So they can get their resources and stuff from Fort Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a big issue with that because at the end of the day, none of us live on Fort Campbell. We may be connected to the military, but we live in Clarksville and we pay our taxes in Clarksville.
Mm-hmm.
We're a huge tax base for this community, yet we don't get the same amenities that the rest of the community gets.
Mm-hmm.
And so if nobody was going to really advocate for this area because they didn't really have a vested interest, hadn't been here, like I've been here since third grade, 1992.
Mm-hmm.
So in that time to see the growth or lack thereof, it needed a champion. And so, I had people like 3-4 years prior trying to pump my head up to get into politics and whatnot. I never had an interest in it until I learned more about it and I saw it as a platform to improve, that part of our community.
Uh-huh.
And then after I got involved in Leadership Clarksville and I got to see the big picture, I just seen that, it was time for somebody that understands different perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
that has a diverse background, that can, really advocate for the ones that don't have a voice or don't know they have a voice.
Yeah. So you gonna try to rise up, or you gonna stay councilman?
I mean, right now, I'm somewhat content with where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
There's people interested in seeing me go forward, a little further, whether it's state rep or senator someday. But there's a lot to factor in.
Mm-hmm.
Like I explained earlier, I got a lot on my plate as is. So before I take on anything else,
Mm-hmm.
I need to let some other things go.
Yeah.
And ultimately, first and foremost, it's my family. So it would have to be something that I knew that they could support, be behind, and I'd still be able to have that balance of time to really give them the better parts of me instead of them getting the what's left over after I give my best to the community.
Okay. So any visions, upcoming projects, any new publishing you got coming out soon?
Well, I mean, the newest thing we got is, like I said, this Saturday is the first mastermind group. We're still taking registration for it. It's free. You just go to our website, leaporg.net/mastermind1,
Mm-hmm.
and you just register for it. And there's a link to go to mastermind 2 if the dates conflict. We got some big community service projects coming up. There's another nonprofit that's could really use some help in a supply drive for battered women that are in their shelter. And so we're collecting like household items, hygiene, toys, different things like that. And on next Saturday, March 25th, from I think 10 to 3 here, we're going to have some vans or big trucks or whatever to haul off all the stuff that's already been donated and that will be donated on that day. Got that going on. I know this Saturday we've got our big garden. We've got a community vegetable garden where we take the produce from that and we give it to organizations like Mana Cafe and those that could benefit from fresh produce. So we'll have Austin P helping us, cultivate that garden. That's about all that comes to mind in March. Well, at the end of the March, we're taking our kids on a college tour. So they're going to go to 9 colleges, ranging from Memphis to Western Kentucky, TSU, MTSU, and then they're going to go on a state capitol tour to meet our House of Representatives and senators.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a glance of just what's happening in March, and April has its own string of events. Anybody wanting to stay up to date on it, the best way is, check us out online or just getting involved, volunteering.
So what if someone wanna? I don't know how your organization works. If someone want to get their child into LEAP, how can they go about that?
They can just come in the office, fill out an intake form, or just request one over email. We'll forward the form to you, fill it out. There's a release waiver on the back, which enables us to pick the child up from school, bring them to the program, we feed them, and we take them home. So, and it's
Okay.
all done free of charge.
Oh, okay. Okay. Uh, you got any words of encouragement for someone out there that's thinking about, maybe starting a business or going buying their first home?
Um, what comes to mind is just don't let the naysayers discourage you.
Mm,
You know, whenever you make up in your mind and your heart that you want to move forward and become a better you, you're going to have to do some house cleaning. The toxic people in your life, whether they're friends, family, sometimes significant others, you're just going to have to kind of move that negativity to the side and focus on what's positive, what's just, and what's pure. Get in tune, surround yourselves with individuals that are a little bit higher off and that are doing kind of what you want to do or have that experience. Get them as mentors.
mm,
A lot of us are willing to pour a little bit of ourselves into you to help you because somebody helped us. I wouldn't be anywhere near where I'm at today if it wasn't for mentors that took the time to say, man, you got a great vision, but you're going about it the wrong way, and just let me guide you.
mm-hmm.
So there's people out there that'll help you, but you just got to be willing to tune out those that ain't really for you,
Mm,
and tune in those that really want the best for you. And they don't have their hand out wanting anything in return. They're just giving it to you because they want to see the next generation be better than them.
yeah. Okay. Thank you, my brother, for coming on this podcast. Follow me on SoundCloud at www.soundcloud.com/culture and cigars. When you're listening to the podcast, also hit the heart button to show your love. Also, you can subscribe on Google Play and iTunes. If you subscribe on iTunes, hit the search button, type in Culture and Cigars. It should pop up. Then when you click on it, it should be three boxes at the top. In the center, it should say review. Click on that, and it'll give you the option of writing a review. I appreciate if you would write a review. That way, it'll make it easier for others to find the podcast if they're browsing through iTunes. Thank you for those who already have subscribed and are following me on SoundCloud. I appreciate you all.